Okay, we are back, and it's good to see that you guys haven't dropped off yet. You're still continuing, which is great. So, in this one, we're going to get into creating a pause menu, just a simple pause menu. And we're going to go through some of the actions or methods that we can apply to things like buttons and how to make a menu. Later on, we're going to make this more advanced, but we're going to start with just a real simple menu that will pause the game and resume the game. So we can pause or resume as much as we'd like. So let's do that. We know right now in our game we have a canvas. I renamed this. I'm going to just rename it back. We have a canvas. And inside our canvas, when we switch to 2D view here, we know that the canvas right now is holding total pickups. That's where we put our UI element that keeps track of how many pickups we have. On a scene, we can have multiple canvases, and canvases can hold UI elements of different types. In this case, we're going to create a canvas for a pause menu. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go to Game Object, and we're going to create a UI element, and we're going to make a canvas. And you'll see now that we have two canvases. Just so we don't confuse the two, we're going to call this one Pause Menu. And we're going to rename the first one, we'll just call it Game UI. So this is the UI that runs during the game is playing. So maybe we'll have a health bar on here or something later as well. We can add onto this. We can have a mini map or whatever the heck we want. But this is the game UI, and this is going to be the pause menu. So for this tutorial, we're going to focus on the pause menu. So first thing we're going to do is we can move this up so that our canvases are next to each other so we can kind of keep track of them. But within the pause menu, we're going to add a UI element that is called a raw image. Okay, and you'll see that it goes inside pause menu. We're going to just call this background. Okay, and you'll see that I'm in the rect tool, the rectangle tool, and I'm going to scale it so that this raw image, which is just a white block, fills the entire screen. Okay, so it's going to fill the entire window. And in your options over here with the background selected, you should see, it might be closed, but you'll see raw image somewhere, and you want to click the arrow so that you can get to the options for that. We're going to set the color for this raw image to black, which is just right here in the corner. Okay. We're also going to pull the alpha, which is A, down a little bit. You can set it to whatever you like, but I'm going to go around 156 so that I can still kind of see the game through it. All right, and we're going to close that off. So we've got this semi-transparent black block, which is going to cover the entire screen. All right, next we want to put some text on here that's going to say that the game is paused. So we're going to go to Game Objects, we're going to go to UI. Also, we are still within our pause menu, so it doesn't hurt to always, select your pause menu, go to UI, and then create text. We've done this before. And we're going to call this, let's just name it, we're going to say pause text. Okay, and the text will say game paused. You'll notice that Unity will remember the last font and font size and styles that we had on it, so it looks a lot like the total pickups. We're also going to go down into the settings for this text and just center it so that it's nice and centered within the screen. All right, so nothing new here other than the fact that we've added a new canvas with a raw image, which is new, and we've got some text. We also want to put a button on here that is going to say resume game so that if they pause the game, they can actually resume it. So game object one more time, UI. We're going to use a button right there. And that's also part of pause menu. As you can see, we're going to just move it down. Whoops. Move it down. Why is it not moving? Let's use the rec tool. Oh, because I didn't have it actually selected. My bad. I'm going to enlarge it. And buttons are a little weird in the way that they work because the button is actually two pieces. All right, the button itself, all the things like the color of the button, what happens when you highlight over it, what happens when you press it, all of that's controlled by the button object. So let's just set the color to something other than white so you can see how that works. We'll go to like a off, sort of reddish. And let's say when we highlight or we roll over it, we'll go to maybe a more intense red, something like that. Okay, so it'll become, that might look weird. Let's just go white. Okay, but to actually change the text on the button, what we have to do is actually click this little arrow. And you'll see that the text is actually inside of the button, so it's a child of the button. And then here we can put resume game. Like that. Okay, so the button and the text within the button, like I said, two separate objects. I'm going to set this to white. I just changed my mind, and my highlight color is going to be that sort of reddish color. There we go. Okay, and now we've got a button on the pause menu itself. Okay, you'll notice now if we play the game, we've got a big problem. This menu, we can still play the game, we still move our guy, we got the music playing and everything, but this menu covers up everything. It's sitting over top of everything. We can't do anything on our game because of it. So what we can do to get around this is we can go to the pause menu, the very top part of this, the canvas basically, the pause menu canvas, and we can turn off the little checkbox next to pause menu, and that will make this entire menu and all of its children inactive. And so when we play the game, you'll now see that it's no longer there. In fact, it doesn't even exist because it's inactive. It's just not visible. So what we want to do is we want to actually control that with some code. We want to control that the visibility of it with some code. So it's really simple to do. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new script. So we're inside our assets, we're inside scripts. We're going to make a new script. And this one is going to be called pause menu. Okay, so pause menu. Double click it, go inside of it, and we're going to start. We're only going to need, in this case, well, we're going to be looking for a button to be pressed. So we're actually going to need the update, but we'll also use the start maybe in this case too. So let's create a new variable, and this one is going to be public. It's going to be a game object, and we're going to call it pause active. By the way, you cannot use the same name as your main, script's name. Cannot repeat that, so it has to be unique. So I'm using pause active. Let's say when it actually starts this script, we're going to make sure that pause active dot set active. Okay, what this does is it controls that little toggle that we saw there for the active, whether this is an active object. So when the game starts, we're going to make sure that the code sets the pause active to false, which means that it will not be active when the game starts. Let's just test that. We're going to save it. We're going to go back into Unity. We're actually purposely going to turn on our pause menu. and we are going to attach the pause menu script to the main camera, which is inside of player. Remember, again, this is just a technique. Some people do use different methods. I attach all my global scripts to my camera. I'm going to take my pause menu and I'm going to add it to the camera. It's going to ask us, what is pause active? What is this game object? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pause menu, which is all of these things, and we are going to drag pause menu to this. All right, so what should happen, a real simple script here, is because we're using the start method, when the game starts and this script runs, it's going to set the pause active game object, which is our menu, to false. And let's see if that actually works. And it does. All right, so even though the pause menu is visible when we're in the editor here, our script is automatically turning it off. All right, so we got that working. Now, let's say we want to have this menu show up when we press a certain key. So let's go back into pause menu. And we're going to want it to look for this all the time. And we've done this before. Actually, we've done this in move controls. If you guys remember, we've done the input if input equals, if it's a key, get key, key code. I'm going to actually take this. I'm going to copy it because I'm lazy. And I'm going to put this into the pause menu inside of the update. And I'm actually going to change the key to P for pause. Okay. And what we're going to do is, if the P key is pressed, then this, the pause active game object that we just set previously, is going to change to true, which means it's going to show up. Hopefully this makes sense. So the pause active game object will become active. That's a lot of actives. It'll become true. So it's going to become active and we're going to actually see it. All right. Now, one thing you may need to add here, because we are dealing with UI elements, you may have to add Unity's UI library. So using Unity engine.ui, okay, may or may not need that. I would include it anyways because that will allow it to access UI elements. Okay, so we're going to save that. So let's test it, play it. Okay, game works. It's not showing. Press P. There we go. We got the game pause menu showing. Now we have no way of closing it because it's there, but it's not. It's active, so we cannot close it. So let's turn it off one more time. Let's once again go into our pause menu script. One other thing that you may have noticed is that the actual game does not actually pause. It's still playing in the background, and you can control your character, and that's not good. That's not what we want. We want it to actually pause. So in Unity, we would type time scale equals 0. And basically what that's telling it is that time now does not exist. It's 0. Our scale for how fast things should happen is now 0, which means it just doesn't move at all. If you were to put 1, which is standard, the game will run at standard speed. If you put 2 or 3 or whatever, you're saying 2 times, 3 times. Basically, time scale controls how fast things happen. All right, so a time scale of 0 means it's going to pause. All right, and we can test that really quickly here. Let's just test it one more time. I like testing every time I make a change just to make sure it actually worked. So play, press P, and there you go. You can see that the game behind it has paused. We can't control. Oh, we can actually control. I could have disabled the controller, but we can't move because the game is paused. All right, so that's how you pause the game, with your time scale set to 0. Next, let's get this game to unpause. All right, because we want to be able to use the resume game option. Now this one is a little bit trickier, not super tricky, just a little bit trickier. We're going to go into our pause menu one more time. And what we're actually going to do in this case is we're going to create a method specifically for this button that's being clicked. Okay, so what we're going to do to create our own method, we're going to go public void, and I'm going to just call it button clicked. Okay, and it just makes sense to have this, in my opinion, inside of the pause menu script. And what this is going to do is it's basically going to be the opposite of what the P key does. So we're going to copy this and we're going to put this down here. And so when the button is clicked, the pause menu will disappear. So the set active will go back to false and time scale will go back to 1. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. We've got a method here on the update looking for the P key. If it's pressed, it becomes true. The pause menu shows up, time pauses. And this method, which we'll access in a second, reverses both of those things so that the game starts playing again. All right, so we're going to save that. Now, how do we attach this method to the button? This is a little bit of a goofy thing, in my opinion, in Unity. What you need to do is, first of all, you need to know which object has the script on it. And we know it's the camera. Okay, the camera has our pause menu script. Next, what you need to do is you need to actually click the button object within whatever you're trying to attach it to. All right, so in this case, it's inside of the pause menu. It's our button. We got it selected. We're going to scroll down to where we see this little option, on click. Okay, so on click. We're going to click the plus, and we want this during runtime only. We don't want this to be active during editing. So we got this during runtime only. And you would think you would just take the pause menu script and attach it, but that is not the way it works. You take the object that it's attached to, in this case the camera, and you attach it. And then what you need to do is where it says no function, you have to go down, find the script that it has attached to it, which is pause menu, and you need to look for the method that we created called button clicked. So what this is telling it, that when the button is clicked, on click, during runtime only, it's going to access the main camera and look for pause menu button clicked method that we created, and that should run what we told it to. All right, now let's test it out. So we're going to hit play. Okay, press the P key to pause, click the button, and the game resumes. Okay, and we can do that over and over and over again. So our pause menu is working beautifully, and everything else is working beautifully. So again, kind of a simple, quick, easy, maybe not the best technique, but there's a lot you can do with set active. You can have certain elements that show up only once you have a certain item, or when you're at a certain part of the game, or whatever. And also UI elements, buttons, very powerful stuff. We're going to be using them a lot. And we'll get into more of this stuff later. But that's how a menu would work. That's how a pause screen would work. Also, we controlled time. Maybe not the best method because we can still kind of move our guy a little bit. But there's a lot we covered there. Hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully you can implement that into your own games.